I literally had no money. I firstly had to get a graduate loan, and I had to pretend to the bank that I was going travelling around the world. And I changed my name to Tom Edwards, because I thought I looked too young to run a credible company. And that's how I kind of started. My name's Tom Glanfield, and I'm founder of LHi. I registered in 2002, but started trading in 2003, in May 2003. As I had little money, I opened in my girlfriend's attic. And then I re-registered my girlfriend's house as Harvey House, Effingham Road, Reigate. I was in this roof where I started the firm, so I had no windows, literally insulation by my head. And in the winter, I actually once picked up the phone and it had frozen to the handset. And in the summer, I was sometimes just out there in my boxer shorts because it was just so hot. And I used to come out looking like a mole, just without the light, just like squinting. And there was a wasp nest at one point, which was a nightmare, when I was hiding under the desk on my phone with wasps like flying around my head. And my friends were going out and partying in London, and I was just working every hour I could get to try and get the business going. And then I eventually saved enough to get a place in Clapham. So that was a housing estate. So I could then renovate it and make it like a kind of funky, quirky office. I really spent a lot in terms of making it quite cool and funky. We had like glass shelves, like wine racks. We had an internal shower. And it's probably enough space to get at a push sort of 10 people into there. I started recruiting other members of staff to then train them and get them going there.
It was Tom's flat. Imagine a bed in the middle of the office and 5 desks on the bottom bit, little mezzanine level, and 4 desks up there in this weird glass room. It was very intimate. 1 toilet between 10 of us at the time. Really good fun. Really good place to cut your teeth in recruitment. But a world away from where we are now as a 300 plus person business. I'm Mike Bott, I am the CSO of LHi Group, and I started in 2007. I was a builder at the time, putting on a friend's roof. He said he'd just got a job in recruitment, and he told me one of his paychecks in his first 3 months, which was more than I was going to get for the whole of this job, putting this guy's roof on my own. Anne-Marie, who is now the head of people, was actually the rec who I called. She said, come to London, got me 3 interviews with a small, medium and large size company. Joined Tom because he was the only person I actually believed. I basically started as I think the 8th or 9th employee 15 years later. It seems to have gone all right.
Mike Bott, I think, was like employee number 8 or something. And I think the first week he went out with us, the next day he was vomiting in the toilet and then lying on the sofa, like dying. And I thought, he's this joker, he's joined us.
I'm a big believer that you join the person rather than the company. Tom was just really authentic, slightly crazy, I'm not gonna lie. He sold me this dream to this day, which rang true. It was just like, I'll show you a way of getting to the top. I had no idea what sales was. I had no idea what recruitment was at the time. It wasn't about the money, it was definitely about the person. I thought, well, if he's gonna teach me directly, I'm gonna be successful. I'll probably more likely be successful with him than anyone else.
Mike Giorgio also joined when we were in Clapham. Me, Mike and Mike, just us 3. In our first office is 30% of the staff, and that first office is still with the business.
I mean, there's loads of stories. I'm going to write a book when I finish, and that's going to be. But what I can say, more PG rated. There's one of my very good friends who started kind of similar time. When he came in, Tom looked quite young. He always looked quite young, but he was a lot younger obviously at the time. Came down and said, "Do you want to make a cup of tea?" And for some reason in his head, he thought Tom was the tea boy. Started asking him interview questions, and he was kind of like, "Why is the tea boy grilling me on these things?" So my name is Michael Giorgio. Everyone calls me Georgie. I am currently North American Managing Director, looking after the US. And I've been with LHi for 11 and a half years. I joined as a graduate in July 2010. The first office was interesting. It was a very untypical London, I guess, experience, but 1,000,000%. The best decision could have ever made, I think, in my life.
We had the downstairs flat first, and then we expanded into the top flat as we got bigger.
This home above here, this flat above here, I started renting. I drilled a hole through the ceiling to get into it and cable that up.
We rented out the floor above it and then drilled wires in between it to link up everything, which I'm not sure was technically what he was meant to be doing when he took the lease on.
It was all about, and it came from Tom, kind of you work your arse off, but you go and celebrate it really big on a Friday. So it was all about us as a collective celebrating every win. That all is influenced by my first 2 years in a 1-bedroom flat with 10 people, with crap tech, with no training or very little. But throw yourself in and see what you can get off the back of it. And yeah, it was pretty cool.
I always wanted to take the business to the city, so we had a period again where I was just saving really hard to then make the big jump. 20 of us in Angel Court, which was at Zone 1, just by Bank Station, cheap rents because no one else really wanted to go somewhere for 3 years and then have to move again like a couple of years later.
I remember when I first joined the business, we were probably 20, 25 person company in an office in Angel Court. Pretty corporate, so everyone was suited and booted. But I just remember it being a really, really fun environment and definitely the sort of place I could see myself sticking out for a decent amount of time. My name is Ben Richardson. I'm currently the UK and European MD, and I joined in 2012. I turned 21 at Lawrence Harvey, so I joined when I was 20, so I was a young pup. Ended up doing really, really well, moving through the ranks and jumping between different markets, setting up new divisions, and yeah, it's put me in pretty good stead. I think Angel Court was the first big boy office. So Angel Court was the first time that we had like a London city address. When I first joined, the thing that really struck me was just how much of a work hard, play hard culture it was. So during the core hours of the day, people were just locked in. If you looked around the office, everyone was on their headset. But as soon as it got to 6:30 or 7 o'clock and someone had done something good, Tom was the first one leading the charge to the nearest pub or to the nearest bar. And those nights normally escalated pretty quickly, with Tom being one of the last ones to leave.
I've always been a big believer in making it fun at work. So having big incentives like holiday targets and things like that, where at one point I took the whole business to Ibiza. In fact, I think it was Anne-Marie's first or second day was actually joining us on a plane to Ibiza.
I think it was a little bit wild. My interview process with Tom was, met him on a Monday night for dinner with a friend. He said to me, I'm going to write you a job spec, but you need to give me an answer today because we're flying to Ibiza on Wednesday. 3 days into my new job, I was painted as a tiger running around a zoo project at a rave. So my name's Anne-Marie Butts. I'm the Chief People Officer for LHi Group. I joined the business in 2012 officially, but my working with the LHi Group spans back to about 2007. Tom, I think at the time, was very hell-bent on creating this really family-oriented business where you went in there and it was a company and everyone was working really hard, but also everyone was probably quite good mates. One of the things that was really I loved about LH and still do is that it's such a great story. It's such a great story to tell. This would be the only company that I would do this for. I worked with lots of recruitment businesses across London and there's some fantastic organisations out there, but this is the one that I was really passionate about selling, really.
Tom definitely went out of his way to try and attract Anne-Marie. Probably took us about 7 or 8 years longer than we expected to get her in the business, but finally Tom did get her over the line and she accepted and literally was a trailblazer for what we have now, which is a real full back office function. We didn't have anything.
She's like the mum of LHi, I guess, and has had a huge impact on the evolution of the business, especially over the last 6 years.
I've really seen her blossom into this chief of people and come along so far in her role to now be a registered director of the business. The first 10 years was always difficult times, doing everything I could to get money in from clients, pushing the company really hard. The key thing is just the growth of the company, and that's what I was focused on.
I'd done 8 years worth of London recruitment I built the team, we had a really successful team, and I was just ready for a new challenge. So it was actually Tom who then came back to me and said, well, go away and tell me where you want to go and write me a business plan, which is really cool. And that is Tom to a T. Okay, we'll go and find it out, stuff. But then I had to think about, okay, shit, where do I actually want to go and what do I want to do? And it was quickly, America. It was quickly from doing some research, markets and fee value, basically. It was triple the fee in America compared to what we used to in the UK for doing the same job. And then I did a massive internal presentation to the office of, can someone please come and do it with me?
Mike Bot, the US opportunity came up, asked me to go to be part of the setup team. It took a bit of convincing for me to do that. Like I just started going out with my now wife, so it's kind of, he was pushing me a little bit, like kept chipping away at me. I was asking people and managed to make it work that Jana could come as well. There's a role for Jana, kind of head up the operational side for us. And that was probably the other great decision that I made.
As soon as I knew that Botty was going to go and Georgie had put his hand up, I started having a few extra combos. Probably one of the biggest decisions, because when I first moved to the US, I was only 23, I think it was.
So I was really lucky to have, in my opinion, the two best recruiters to start this adventure with me. So we decided that we were going to commit all in, but from the UK first and incubate. And then we went into, what most people call Navy SEAL mode, basically.
I guess we were just desperate to make it as successful as possible, as quickly as possible. So then it started getting in at like 10 and then leaving at like midnight, and then we got like 9:30. It was easier for me and Mike Bot. Ben had to walk across London Bridge to get the train where he lives in Beckenham, and I remember there were some tough, rainy, windy nights. He's walking across there at midnight, which I think was tough for him.
The first couple of months were probably the most intense months that I've had in my career. My dad said to me, "What are you doing this for? What is the point?" Botty, Georgie are such intense workers, and it just sort of raised the game.
First 3 months, I don't think any of us did a deal, so I think that was a bit of a touchy time where everyone's thinking like, is this the right decision?
3 months in, we definitely had that moment of, shit, like, is this going to work? Month 4, the first deal went in, which to this day is the greatest deal I've ever been a part of in my team. It wasn't me who did the deal, it was Ben.
I was fortunate enough to do the first US placement after we did that first deal, which was just amazing because then it made it all worthwhile and was basically the reason we were doing it.
And then the next 3 months, we hit our target, like from like 0 to 3 months to hit the target. So Tom, I remember he brought us into a room one day and put plane tickets on the table. It was like, you're going on these dates.
So we landed in New York, and the goal was basically to build out the New York office as quickly as possible.
So this is the initial US crew. It's a lovely picture. We should keep that. Me, Jana and Ben actually moved in together as well for a year in Manhattan. I mean, we'd been with each other working every day, but going out every Friday and Saturday.
The New York move also really created this relationship where, I'd class him as one of my best mates.
It was all exciting, but it was all going in the right direction. We've gone from starting off with 5 of us in a tiny, tiny box room. The US now we've got 3 offices in New York, LA and Austin that were opened in that order.
It's been awesome to be able to grow both the business but also personally and professionally.
One of the challenges that we had at the time was we had this brand that looked very professional on the outside, but internally we were really different. We realised pretty quickly that it needed to change and that we needed to have something that was for us and that spoke more to the individuals in the business.
I remember that my first week, they were still printing out brochures on the big copier in the office. They didn't really have anything at that point. They'd sort of been muddling through, but they were doing a really good job and they had a really, really good name in the market. I'm Kim Pasto, Director and Head of Marketing at LHi Group. I have been with the business since 2013. You can see how motivated Tom was to grow the business. He had big ideas and that was evident from the start. So we needed a marketing function and certainly a brand that would support that. We wanted to branch into different sectors. So we were Lawrence Harvey Tech, and that's what we were known for. But our problem was that we had an oil and gas business. Boo. We had a life sciences business, and to market those effectively was really difficult under one brand. We were mostly known as technology, and we couldn't quite get out of that. We ummed and ahed for a long time about, should it be Lawrence Harvey Group, Lawrence Harvey Tech, Lawrence Harvey Oil and Gas, Lawrence Harvey Life Sciences, etc., or should we completely rebrand? We had quite a lot of discussions about it, and finally we did decide to rebrand to LHi Group. It wasn't always called LHi Group.
I can't remember if it was her or me, but we'd come up with the name Avidity, which was Latin for, what was Latin for?
We were originally going to be called Avidity Global, which was a name that we all came up with. It took a number of weeks to come up with it. I went away, did all of the branding, created the logo, bought the domain. We were all ready to go. And then one morning, Tom just phoned me and was just like, no, I don't want to call it that anymore. I want to call it LHi.
And Kim nearly punched me in the face, I think, at the time. But then Kim, being Kim, just made it amazing.
This was what LHi Group was going to be called. Looking back, Tom was 100% absolutely right. LHi just is us. He was right. I'll give him that. LHi Group consists of Harper Maddox, who are our clean energy brand. Harper Harrison, we focus on the built environment. SciPro is our life sciences brand. And Lawrence Harvey is our heritage brand, our technology focused brand. And then we also have XPS, which is our project delivery brand.
Yeah, I always thought, we are building something together. Everyone's pitching in here. People are joining me on housing estates instead of joining big city firms. People are going abroad to open offices, and it was about building something meaningful to everyone. And in that, over that course, we're gonna grow internationally, we're gonna grow multiple brands, and I'm gonna replace myself. I'm gonna get better people than me, and one day I will be able to step away from the business and I'll make someone to CEO and someone to chairman and have a board.
We were at a point where we really needed some help, and we wanted to grow, Tom wanted to grow, and we really needed that external advisor, and I just knew James was the absolute best.
I walked into a business that had been going about 15 years. It was relatively successful, but was struggling to grow. My name's James Ash. I'm chairman of LHi. I joined the business, or first got involved with the business in 2016, early 2016. When I started working with the business, I was doing, I think it was a couple of days a month, and it pretty quickly became clear that it was going to need a lot more than that. It was performing really well from a sales perspective, but kind of the machinery of the business wasn't moving forward. So that first meeting I had with Tom, and he kind of, like most recruitment entrepreneurs I meet, sort of expressed an interest in selling his business. My first response to him was, you're not going to be the guy running it when that happens. If you want to get the benefit of that, you need to stand back. And I think he also realized that in that first kind of 6-9 months we worked together, he wasn't the right guy to run a bigger business. So the plan we put in place was a transitional plan. The 5-year plan was that Tom would start stepping back. I'd fill a little bit of that void, not as the founder of the business, somewhere perhaps in the background a little bit, working with those office leaders, and we'd create opportunities.
I think a lot of people misunderstand me sometimes. I definitely have an ego, but I have no ego attachment to being a CEO. All I know is I wanted to replace myself as CEO in order for us to achieve our goals.
In that first board meeting I sat in for LHi, quite obviously the most talented individual I thought in the room was Jim, in terms of a future leader.
Before I got into recruitment, as a wet behind the ears whippersnapper, I had a lovely opportunity to go and travel the world a bit playing cricket. Finished up at uni, moved to London, met a gentleman in a pub who got talking, and he just sort of said, oh, come on down tomorrow and have an interview with us. Was I a natural recruiter? Absolutely not. I think I was awful at the job, and it took me a long time to really find my place in the industry. It took me 18,654 cold calls until I pulled that first job. Worked there for 8 years, went through some pretty tough times, but some great times as well, and ended up becoming the director of that contract business, which was a great achievement by the age of about 28, I think I was at the time. My name's Jim Denning. I'm the CEO of LHi Group, and I joined LHi Group in 2014. Tom convinced me to come on over and start the oil and gas business. The company was about 40 people by then. I remember coming into the office in Leadenhall, sitting down on the brown couches, and just instantly you felt like that little fizz, that little stardust. And it was very much that sort of one office, real family feel. Everyone went on incentives and that sort of thing.
But Jim always was very ambitious and said to me, I want to go far in this company, and I definitely want to be considered for the CEO role in the future. And how can I put my name in the hat for that? And I said, the key thing for you is I want you to take some risks.
We made the move to go to New York as a business, which was a fantastic success. At that juncture in my life, but also in my family life, my wife and I we were engaged, we were just about to get married, and we were really up for a bit of an adventure. I remember walking into Tom's office and saying, look, mate, how can I get involved in this sort of thing? Within 10 minutes, in Tom true nature, he went, right, cool, well, we want to do something on the West Coast, so if you're up for it, let's do it. I rang my wife, and she was really happy, but at the same time completely shocked that it happened so fast. So we then went on honeymoon, thinking that we were going to go to San Francisco.
The thing with me, I'm a bit of a perfectionist sometimes. And when I get something in my head, I can be a bit of I don't mind changing the decision last minute if I think it's the wrong one. When he came back from honeymoon, I just told him that you're just so you know, you're going to go to LA now and not San Fran. He went home and spoke to Tiff, who I think ripped his head off.
The sell to my wife that night was not quite as easy. She's in travel. She knows the LA scene versus San Francisco, and it was certainly an interesting conversation or two. But then once we got out to LA, completely fell in love with the place, and delighted to say now that it's very much a second home for us.
So Jim went out to LA to create an opportunity for him to experience something different in the business, prove something different to himself, take ownership of something that was new for the business, and was incredibly successful in the first couple of years out on the West Coast of the US. For Tom, stepping back from the business was really hard, as it would be for any founder, but culturally it was his life. He was incredibly engaged with it. Obviously financially, it was his baby he'd built from nothing. But understanding that you need to step back, that you need to give people opportunities, is something he recognized quite early in that sort of middle period of that 5-year plan. And that's what set us up pre-COVID with a much, much better foundation. So when we went into COVID, we were a really fit business.
Did I move because I wanted to be CEO of the business? Absolutely not. That wasn't in my thinking. And once that became a reality, I was incredibly proud for about 2 minutes, and then 8 weeks later, the pandemic struck, and so that had to be shelved. But the pandemic is one of those sort of key milestones for growth for LHi, and not because of what we did commercially, but what we did culturally that allowed that to happen.
Credit of James and Jim, the number one thing that was talked about was how do we look after the people in the business. We're a business who are a family who like seeing each other a lot. The friendships that have been formed in the LHi groups, the marriages that have happened, the relationships that, that's really important to us.
The way in which we went through the COVID period was very much people first, and that was Ed's brainchild. So love him.
If we are able to double the growth of the business, I think for the original founders like Boddy and Tom, it'll be an emotional rollercoaster because, from what they've started 20 odd years ago to what they're going to achieve in the next 3 years, I think they won't be able to comprehend initially just how well and successful the business has become. My name's Ed Parks, and I'm the CFO of LHi Group, and I joined in 2018. When I first started, the business was growing extremely fast paced, so I think one of my key remits was to come in and make sure that we could harness that growth, but also deliver it in the financial processes. James was very honest in terms of what the business needed and just explained what my remit would be to ensure that we could achieve that.
I've been with the business a number of years, but if I'm honest, it's changed so much. I feel like I've worked for 3-4 different businesses over these years, and the one that I work for now, because of people like Jim and Anne-Marie, I'm extremely proud of.
Pretty much every cultural idea that we've had across LHi is style and Kimmy's purple notebook. And it now runs all the way through our business. She's like the definition of a cultural architect.
He believes in what he wants to achieve. He believes in people. He believes in the vision. And I suppose the biggest thing that I've brought to LHi is creating the LHi vision, which was probably my biggest project of my career to date. We've really focused on what it means to build our culture now globally. And it has really engaged with the business globally, and it's brought us together. And I think it's sort of filled a gap that we needed to sort of, take our strategy forward.
Kim and I have been working fastidiously on the LHi vision, which is now very much a core part of what we're all about.
One of the things I love, and I get really excited whenever I walk into any of the LHi offices, is that it doesn't matter where it is, whether it's Munich, New York, LA, Austin, Berlin, Bristol, Manchester, London. You feel like you're in an LHi office. We've got amazing vision and values and our mission on the walls.
The beautiful thing I think about what Kim does is the majority or most of what she does, it is timeless, right? It will be with us in 10, 15, 20 years. And the vision piece specifically is definitely Kim's legacy.
We've just finished a 5-year plan, which I guess was less about numbers and spreadsheets, although we had some of that stuff. It was more about creating that vision for what the business looks and feels like.
And we've got a real culture of succession within the business. And I think Jim very much has the same mentality as me, that he's CEO, but he really wants someone to come through in the future to challenge him and take over him as CEO. And it's almost like passing the flame on. So I think, perfect analogy is the younger you. And it's a theme that kind of runs the company.
The younger you ethos has always been something that's been dear to my heart. Obviously, the start I had in recruitment was something that I never want to give to anyone else. But the ethos of the younger you really is a physical thing that people are reminded of on a daily, weekly, monthly basis whenever they wear their Converse. And crucially, that their younger yous would want to walk in their shoes, would want to follow them, and ultimately, hopefully one day surpass those individuals. This is where the younger you all began, right? Like, the moment we give out the Converse and the Leadership Conference.
These are the younger you trainers. Given when anyone's promoted in the business to a certain level, it's inscripted with the year that you started your career in, so that every time you wear them, you remember what it was like to walk in the shoes of the first day at work.
This photo does the rounds on LinkedIn. I think a lot of people use it for stories. We embrace every different walk of person in the business. And at the centre of it all, we make sure we stay to that younger you ethos. My interest with all my businesses, particularly something like LHi now, is not where are we going to be this year, it's where are we going to be next year and the year after, and what are we doing to get ourselves there. And that's, I think, for me and for Tom, we're really interested in seeing the journey continue. It doesn't feel like the journey's over. I think for Jim and his leadership team, it probably feels like they've only just begun. They've only just really taken control of the company over the last couple of years.
We've always talked about how do we exit, how do we sell, and how do we allow everyone to realise their money. At the same time, I guess, protect the company. When we'd hit the numbers we'd hit recently, we started talking about EOT, the Employee Ownership Trust.
The best thing about the EOT structure that we put in is every decision that the business makes has to be in the best interest of the employees. It's as simple as that. So we want to create value for all employees, not just a few, so that in the long term, we know that all the employees that put in all the hard work will share in the reward.
So it's effectively like an MBO where effectively the staff are buying the company from me, but they'll never have the risk that I had where you have to personally guarantee anything.
It gives not just a golden opportunity for growth and for scale for everyone in the business, but also to be a part of a moment where there is an enormous wealth creation as we hit that target in the next 3 years or so.
Probably the most compelling part of that EOT scheme thing, outside of the financial upsides for everyone in the business, was just that we kept control of the business.
There's no external ownership. The leadership team is still running the business. We make the decisions on behalf of the employees, and we can shape our legacy. So I think that should be really exciting for all employees, that we're all driving towards the one goal. I think in terms of what our vision is for the next 3 years, we've got a tangible plan to double the size of the business. We're going to do that organically. We're not going to seek outside investment. We've got a really great plan with our younger you philosophy where we can really drive that growth.
The next couple of years for us are probably going to be some of the most exciting years in terms of growth. I would genuinely say to anyone that's coming through the business or looking at joining the business, there's tons of potential and tons of opportunity as long as you're willing to put the hours and the graft in, for sure.
We're just scratching the surface of the markets we're in. If you're in the business now, like I was, as a graduate, you could be the next person opening up in Japan, Singapore, South Africa, Italy. We've got a very exciting 3 and 5 year plan that we're going to be working to, and we will implement it. It's going to succeed, which is the fun part.
We've now got the opportunity, I think, to make a difference internally and externally. So big diversity programs, like areas of corporate and social responsibility that we've never been able to do before. I think we're going to have a huge opportunity to give back externally and make a difference to not just the lives of the people who work at LHi.
It's like that magic dust that you can't really touch sort of thing that makes us us. We're going to back and invest in the juniors and that younger you element and give people an easier journey to success, which I've definitely been an example of and felt that myself.
The future is looking so good for us. We're a people-first business, and that's no more evident than today. If the last 20 years is anything to go by, then it's definitely going to be an adventure.
Yeah, we've got so much more potential. The fact that we're going to double in size, new offices, new geographies, in terms of what I can learn from that, I'm really here for the long term.
I think the lessons for the future in the past, if you look at the last 5 years, we've come an enormous way. And I think each of our brands has an opportunity to be a demonstrable sort of number 1, number 2 player in their marketplaces. Is a huge opportunity.
LHi 1.0 was a fantastic opportunity to be a part of a growing business. LHi 2.0 gives an opportunity for every single individual across the business to have a shareholding, a stakeholding within the firm, and a real opportunity to be responsible personally for the direction of the business. That concept of working together in that stronger together mentality and protecting and future-proofing not just our culture but our careers and family legacy is something that I think is unique across the industry.
It's just like a family, it's a trusting team. It's been a phenomenal success, and it's going to go on to be an even more phenomenal success. It's about keep your head down, work hard, and if you're a good human and a good team player, you'll go really far with the business.
And that is a wrap. Thank you. Yeah.